Hi, I'm Lane Hall, and this is our group project, the Farm Village Simulator. I'm part of the gameplay team, personally in charge of creating the player inventory system and UI, the crafting system, and the farming system for our game, as well as putting together our finished presentation. For the farming system, I created blueprints allowing for the player to plant seeds, those seeds to grow into fully harvestable plants, and implementing those plants into the inventory system I made. I also created a small widget that allows for players to see how many seeds of each type they have and select which seed to plant. For the player inventory, I spent most of my time on the functionality for adding items to the inventory and creating the ability to place items. I implemented my inventory system into Madelyn's inspect item parent, allowing for any items we created to be obtainable, inspectable, and placeable. I then implemented a crafting system within the player inventory, allowing for further range of functionality. I then focused my time on improving the overall aesthetic of the inventory, all the while ensuring that it made sense with the other UI elements in the game. After all of this, I focused on creating the final project for our group. Next, Liam will tell you about his combat system for our game.
My name is Liam Robison, and I am the AI and combat designer for this project. My task was to implement combat into the gameplay loop. Firstly, the crossbow launches a flaming pumpkin projectile grown from the farm that will bounce off the environment and damage zombies. When the zombie is damaged, it will react one of two ways and collapse when defeated, giving the player a random amount of seeds that can be used for farming, including pumpkin seeds. A random number of zombies will spawn when the game's internal clock hits 6 p.m. and will disappear at 6 a.m. They will wander the area and chase the player when spotted, then attack. To further explain day-night cycle as well as the environment and lighting, I'll pass to the environment team.
Hello everyone, I'm Klara Proffen, and I was responsible for the environment, lighting, dialogue system, and UI. For the environment, I worked on the day-night cycle, the buildings and layout of the village, and the foliage spawner. I added the day-night cycle to create an atmospheric environment with a working sun and moon using a custom sky sphere where the user could put in a time of day to start the cycle. It was later also used to implement the zombies that would spawn during nighttime. With the size of the environment, the day and night cycle's brightness was off, as everything was way too bright and there was no distinction between the sun and moon. In order to fix that, I was able to adjust the brightness and color inside the skysphere itself, and I added a separate level for the lighting itself that would remain unchanged in the persistent level to create the distinction between day and night. Once I was able to solve these problems, the level now had a realistic sky cycle that loops at a certain speed over time. For the village itself, we decided to use models from Quixel to create a realistic-looking environment. I was responsible for creating the buildings themselves and worked on the layout of the village for the player to be able to walk around and complete their tasks. Once the buildings of the village were complete, I created a foliage spawner, as that would save a lot of time when creating the environment, as it would spawn multiple plants at the same time, using a box extent to spawn trees, grass, and flowers. In addition to the foliage inside the village, it was also used to create the dense forest around the village that would then be used to block the player from moving too far from that village. With the hilly base for the environment, I also ran into a few problems with the foliage spawner. In order to fix that, it was important to use multiple spawners and focus on the position of each spawner to make sure the box extents were long enough to have collision with the base. I also had to tweak the blueprints a little in order to make sure the grass and trees would always spawn upwards, as the hills originally made some of the plants spawn sideways. Once I was able to solve these issues, the nature part of the village was quick and efficient to create. In addition to the environment, I was also responsible for creating the dialogue system of the villagers. Using behavior trees and AI, I was able to implement NPCs for the villagers that the player would interact with. With the different behavior trees, the villagers would each have a unique dialogue that the player could interact with. In addition to those behavior trees, it was also important to create a UI for the dialogue system that would then be similar to the layout of all the other graphics. After splitting up the different UI aspects of the game, I was responsible for the game over menu and the icons for the inventory system. While creating the game over menu, I made sure that it would have the same layout as the main menu to keep everything the same and had functioning buttons. For the icons, I created them inside Adobe Illustrator before importing them over to our project to be implemented into the inventory system. With the fonts and colors agreed on by the group, it's important to keep all the graphics uniform to create a coherent UI system. And now I'll hand it off to Madelyn.
Hello, my name is Madelyn Spears, and this is what I did for my part in this project. To start, I created the main menu for our game. It uses an Unreal map I built with assets that are present in the game. I also worked with the lighting and fog elements within the level to create God rays and to create the desired look I wanted. This menu also features a credits menu that shows who worked on this project and what they did for it, and I also created a simple quit button to stop the game. One of the things I did for this project was to make a simple empty world map that allowed everyone to work on the same level. I used a mixture of rock materials from Quixel along with surface materials to help create a basic ground level so the world was not all gray. I used a mix of grass, dirt, and rock surfaces to paint the map. I also touched on some level of game design within the world, with most of it being on lightning and exponential fog within the level. Another thing I decided to do for this project was to create a weather system. I worked with the particle system and blueprints to create my rain and thunder effects. The rain uses the Klara particle system and collision to create the rain and the splash effects that come after. The splashes use a splash texture that spawns on anything with collision. The thunder was created separately from the rain, as it uses blueprints to create the effects using timelines, post-processing volumes, and textures. I was able to create my desired lightning effect within the world. The post-processing box helps create a flash of light to give the lightning effect, and it also helps darken the world a bit to create a more storm-like environment. I also created one other thing within the Klara particle system, and that was the fireflies. It was simple to make, but helps bring a bit more life within our small village. Both the fireflies and the rain are within their own levels and can be separated from the main level. Another thing I created for this project was interactable objects for the player to inspect. Most, if not all, props are interactable within the world. You're able to pick up objects and use the mouse buttons to move the objects in any direction, and then use the same button to drop the item back down. This mechanic uses blueprintings and timelines to create this. The base object is also an empty item parent. This allows any person in the project to add a new interactable object to the environment with ease. For this project, I also used some tutorials to help me create the things I wanted for this project. These tutorials were made by Code Like Me and Matt Asplin on YouTube, and all of the materials and props I used came from Quixel. And thank you for watching our video.